vastu shravana matrena shuddha buddhi nirakula naiva acharam anacharam audashyam va prapashyati. He who is free from doubts and has his mind identified completely with the self never resorts to the practices of control as a means to liberation. Seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, and eating, he lives happily. The verse talks about a man of wisdom who exists as verily as self, and with self illumining all the five sense perceptions. How can the five senses affect the self which illumines them, which enables them to function? One who fears committing any unwanted actions prompted by his senses, actions which add to his karma, actions that take him away from his path of God realization, he must take efforts, conscious, deliberate efforts to control his senses. Sadhakas are requested to go back to a visualization that he gave that possibly might have been covered in an earlier Ashtavakra Gita verse talk. Sadhakas were asked to visualize two human beings seated in the sanctum sanctorum, in the hall, in the temple, in deep dhyana. One is a Jivan Mukta who is not in dhyana but who is in samadhi, and the other one is a Jiva who is meditating. And from outside, some world of objects, you can imagine anything, is approaching them and trying to cause some disturbance in them. The Jiva is feeling the sense of objects coming to attack him, disturb him. So unable to control, he sees, he hears, he allows the sight to disturb his meditative state, allows entry of whatever his senses have perceived on seeing or hearing the sense objects. He allows the perception to get inside and to collaborate with his vasanas, ragadveshas. So a disturbance is caused within. For such a jiva, maximum efforts are required to exercise sense control. Verse 45 echoes this idea when it says, encountering the tigers of sense objects, The frightened ones seeking refuge at once enter the cave of mind for the attainment of control and concentration. Whereas a sage seated there, a Jivan Mukta seated there in Samadhi, his eyes also see the same object which is trying to disturb both of them. He is also hearing what can be disturbing to both of them. But there is no disturbance caused to him due to any such sight or any such sound or smell or whatever. No disturbance ever happens to the state of abidance in self. This makes it clear that a Jivan Mukta need not exercise control over his senses because he has already mastered his senses, mastered his mind. The senses serve him. The senses can never master him. Who is the master of masters, existing as pure self. Chinmaya writes in his commentary, with the heat of sun, water evaporates and clouds are formed and it rains. But can such a rain ever wet the sun? Rains cannot happen without the sun. Yet sun is totally unaffected by rain and rain cannot touch the sun. No senses can function, no creation can exist without getting illumined by self, exactly like nothing can happen without the illumination of sun. Nothing, no senses, no creation, nothing can exist and function without being illumined by self. Yet, nothing in the creation can ever touch this self. In this way, self holds a relationless relation with the entire creation. The creation exists illumined by the self, but upon illumination, subsequent to illumination, self has no association with whatever happening in the creation. That is why self is described as the self of all without all in the Gita. Hari Om Tat Sat.